back to the Inspiration Station in your Everyday Edge podcast. I'm your host, Mr. U. If you've been with us for a while, you know what to do. Jump on Apple Podcasts, hit us up with a 5-star review. Let us know how you enjoying this episode and what you learned from this today. And of course, you can definitely download all the episodes of previous shows. You can check it out. In the upper right-hand corner of the screen, the QR code. That's going to allow you to find all of our previous episodes. Everything is on the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your listening podcast from. Of course, our YouTube channel is in full effect. You can go there and subscribe to our channel, get episodes from all 3 of our exclusive movement podcasts, which is highly recommended. But thanks again for watching and listening. Glad to be back with you guys. As you may already know we're in the continuation of our Wholeness series. I came into the new year with a cry to God that I wanted to be whole. There is a lot of things that I've done, a lot of really good work that I believe I've done, a lot of good positive impact that I've made up and down the East Coast, specifically where I've moved and lived and coached and counseled and such, and done ministry. But even in other places, even in the other parts of the country, that I got some places where I've been able to have some reach and some influence in people's lives, and it's been a blessing to them, coming from them, not me. That's what they're saying. And even with all that being said, I recognize that, you know what? We're on a journey, and we read about this kind of stuff in the scripture, but we just overlook it and think, oh, God doesn't really care. It's not a big deal. My attitude, hey, people can get over that. It's not as bad as me murdering somebody. But you don't understand that in God's mind, in his sight, sin is sin. It's not a degree. This is worse than that one. That's what religious folks say. In his mind, wrongdoing is wrongdoing. Doesn't matter how you look at it. And I recognize that there's a need for me to excavate my heart, if you will, get some stuff out of me that doesn't belong, deal with some unhealthy habits, deal with some bad attitudes, and start addressing some things that need to be part of the cleanup mission so that I can be on the road to being healthy and whole. That's where I'm at with mine. If you guys can agree, love to hear your thoughts. Drop it in the chat, in the comment section. Let me know what kind of journey you're on this year. What are you trying to accomplish? You're going to say lose weight, that's fine, but don't come back a week later saying, you know what? I stopped going to the gym. I stopped eating right. If you're going to do it, let's do it together. But one of the things we're going to talk about in this next installment of our Wholeness series is identity. I probably should have started with this one because this is so important. But I really believe that real change that can be sustained, comes from identity, not the way you perform. I don't think I have to flesh that out. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Because the moment you can't perform, then who have you become? Where does change take a part then? It's really all about your identity. And that's what I believe the devil attacks more than most anything in our lives, with our identity. Because I believe I said this in the first installment of the Wholeness series. If I did, I just repeat it again. People who have given up on life early, have forfeited their destinies, have made decisions that were permanent based on temporary situations. Those folks are probably the next inventors, the next world changers, the next visionaries. But we'll never know it now because they made a permanent decision based on a temporary situation. Real change that can be sustained. Sustainable change comes from identity. Who are you? Do you know who you are? I believe identity is rooted in love. I'll give you a spiritual anchor today. Mark 12, the 30th chapter, verse 31. It reads, love the Lord, of course, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. A lot of us don't even know who our neighbors are because we're so consumed with our own stuff. We don't even know who lives around us, who walks past us in lobbies and in hallways, who sits next to us, who rides the bus or the train with us. We don't even know who our neighbors are. And to be honest, many of us don't even care. It's not even on our radar. But I believe identity is rooted in love. To the degree that you care and you have empathy and other people matter to you, it says a lot about your identity. And just vice versa. If you're somebody who is selfish and you're vain and you get your nails done, but you won't lift your hands, them same hands that have good nails and healthy polished nails, you want to use that same hand to pick somebody else up that in need that has fallen. It says a lot about your identity and your character. Psalms 139:14 says, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. That's a basis for our identity. Before we start performing and building and doing things, we got to understand who we are. If we think we're trash, we're going to conduct ourselves like trash. If we think we're a jewel in the crown of the king, we're going to treat ourselves like we're royalty, treat ourselves like we have value. Early Christian leaders, I believe it was in the Augustine Confessions, said that identity transformation is basically reorienting from the inside. It's not about what you do externally. People in ministry need to hear that today, because a lot of people have 5, 8, 10 roles in a ministry. I was there. That's how I know this. I see the signs. I know how it looks. But that's not how you create an identity. They may think that because their mindset could be limited in that area. And they think, the more jobs I have, the more wanted I am, the more needed I am. That makes me more who I am. But that's kind of a disgrace to God, because if you believe Psalms 139:14 that I just read, if you believe that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you were made after an incredible blueprint, unlike any other creature walking the face of the earth and have ever walked the earth, you're that unique and that valuable. If you think that your job assignment, your role in a corporation, your role in a ministry, your role in a community makes you who you are, that's pretty sad. We should have a funeral, because that's like death. You're greater than the role that you have. You can quit all 10 of your jobs in the ministry and still be a valuable, vital, important person, not just to your family, but to the people who you have served, people who love you and care about you. You have value no matter what your role and assignment is. I want to put that out there for those that needed to hear that today. I don't know who's attributed to, but somebody said that no one can know God who doesn't first know themselves. I put that out there, let you think about whether you agree with that statement or not. What I will take away from that today is that if we don't understand who we are, we won't understand that we have a need for God. We'll be insulated by our vanity, insulated by our selfishness, insulated by the things that we want, the things that we think are important. Do you know people live an entire lifestyle, a lifetime, a lifespan, if you will, chasing after things, and they think that the things on their fingers and the things around their neck and the things that they drive and the things they live in make them who they are. And when they lose them, they're in utter despair, and they usually end up making some really bad decisions. Do you know the first time that there was a stock market crash? Look it up. I don't have the year in front of me. I think it's good context for you to look at it. You're going to find more than just what I'm going to say on this episode today. But look at the reaction when the stock market crashed for the first time. People's responses were dire and epic and really intense. People were jumping off of buildings, man, to their death, because they were in despair about their finances. Everything that they had in their life, anything that looked like wealth or any status or position, they felt like that was their identity. So when they lost all of those things, they made tremendously bad decisions that changed everything. That's what happens when we put those things above what our identity is. That's what happens. There are people who I know who have made those kind of decisions. Do you know anybody that's made those kind of decisions? Did they know who they were? Can you say you know who you are? I love when Jesus asked the disciples, who do they say I am? And they were able to run it off. They call you this. They call you that. They say that you're Elijah come back from the grave. They say that you're a prophet. They say that you're the Messiah. And then he asked a question that got some whispers back. It wasn't as emphatic as the first question. He asked the disciples, who do you say I am? And then they got quiet. Like, and Peter had an answer that Jesus was pleased with, but the mother fellas didn't have much of an answer. They were like, I don't know. I know what they say. See, we know more about what somebody else says about us than what we should be saying about us. There are people who I know right now that are still living in the cave built by words that people said about them, what people call them. I'm going to have a conversation about that just this morning, about all the things that we, from traveling through the East Coast and moving and living in different places, the thing that people have said about us, words that they threw at us out of anger or bitterness or racism, straight up race hate. And those things, those words are spirit. They don't just disappear into the ether and just go poof and they're gone. They land in places. You got to get that stuff out. I liken it to what you do or what you experience when you do a house clean, a real house cleaning. If you've never done that, no shade. But do it though, but no shade. When you do a real house cleaning, I've done this before, that's how I can talk to you about this today. When you do a real house cleaning, you are always surprised by what you find every single time. You're like, what? I walked past this spot that many times and this was there? This kind of gook and dirt was there all that time? In this corner, in this crevice? And we don't realize that. That's how it is inside of our souls. If people say things that offend us or things that are hateful, we said, well, I ain't worried about them, but those words still land somewhere. We got to clean that stuff out of us. The same way we do a deep cleaning on the house, because it's still there and it stays there. And it becomes a hindrance to us when we're trying to move up in life. We start hearing things like, or getting reminders of the things that people have said, like, oh, where's that coming from? From the place you haven't cleaned out yet. That's where it's come from. You get that? It's time for a house cleaning, perhaps in more ways than one. It's really all about understanding who you've become and who you're becoming. Identity is more important. It's a more important driver of action than anything that you can be motivated to do. Case in point, I used to be a recruiter for a very short period. I was doing it with the government, but this is outside of that. And I had some jobs that I wanted to give out to people because we wanted to stimulate the economy and get people working. And we had jobs that were $20 an hour, $25 an hour, labor intensive jobs, no doubt, but they were available. People who had at least the basic amount of skills. I believe these companies were desperate and they want somebody who would just work and be consistent and show up. I have these young cats come in my office. You can tell because you walk inside my office without a belt on and your pants sagging down. I didn't even play that game. Where's your belt? Go back home and get one. Come back and see me. And they would get mad and they would never come back. I just want you to go home and get a belt so that I ain't seeing you behind in my office. That's too much to ask, but I digress. But these young cats would come in my office and we close the door and they would tell me all about their resume. Like I don't have it in front of me on the screen right now. I'm prepared for every meeting. I already know more about you than you think I know. I did my own research. I scoured databases to find out what your history is like. And honestly, they'll come in and almost demand that we get them a $20, $25 hour job. And a job they had that was $7 an hour, they couldn't stay at it. They got a $10 hour job. That's a bump. And they wouldn't show up for that either. They have multiple absences, unexcused absences at that. But they would come in and demand, slouched in the chair in my office, telling me what they think they deserve. What do you think happened? They can be motivated all day. I'm going to work, Mr. Yusuf. I promise you, I'll show up. I've tried that, been there, get burned a lot of the times. Sometimes they do show up, but a lot of times they don't. They motivated. But their identity, how they see themselves, is the real driver of the action, way more than their motivation and their promises that they're making to me. That's what gets them out of bed to be at the job site on time. If anybody ever worked a job before and you hear that alarm go off at 5 o'clock in the morning, motivation is not what gets you out of that bed and gets the crust out of your eyes and gets you to go brush your teeth, do your hair, put some clothes on, and go ahead and face this world. It's your identity. When you know who you are, when you know who you intend to become, the path that you're on, it changes everything. The goals, the habits, the things you do on a daily basis, the daily discipline that you do. Do you go to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning? You try to get up at 5? How's that going for you? You guys are asking yourself a question, who are you becoming in the process? Because that's the key right here. That's the answer right here. That's where sustainable change actually starts, right there in that place. Intention is what you want to do. Identity is who you believe you are. Identity will get you out of that bed. Even if you only have 5 hours of sleep, because you recognize the path you're on, what you're trying to accomplish, and you know what you got to do to get there, and who you want to look like in front of people. Do you want to be a slacker in people's opinion of you, or somebody who's stand up, that's conscientious, that's faithful, that's determined? People try to change their behaviors without dealing with the identity issue on the inside. Many folks are coming not only into my office, but on Zoom calls to be just like this, trying to convince me that this is who they are, their identity. And then we get into a deeper conversation. I get them in the box. And guess what I find out? Everything you said wasn't totally accurate. It wasn't totally legit. Is that the kind of message that you want to put out there for people? Or do you want to understand who you are so you can have a better chance of becoming who you're supposed to be? If you ever seen a house with a really bad foundation, I've seen this before. You've seen a house with a really bad foundation, putting a new coat of paint on it ain't going to get the job done. It's not going to mean nothing. Nobody's going to buy it, and nobody's going to want to live in it because it looks good on the outside, but that house is this close to going down. It may look good, but it's not going to last. You may have improved it, but it's not going to last. We talked about Psalms 139:14, that I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Our identity is rooted in God's design for us. It's not in performance. It's not this need for external approval. It's in his design. Who do we look like? Who do we sound like? What matters to us at our core? Are we aligned with who we are? Are we inside what we're trying to show people on the outside? It's something to think about. We really got to get there. We got to really learn how to know ourselves. This whole Wholeness series, I'm hopeful that this resonates with you and that you really find value in this and that we hear from you on this, because I think people need to hear your comments. You need to see what you're seeing and hear what you're hearing. Because we're at a place where influencers are everywhere, and they're not really influencing anything but sales for businesses and companies. They're not influencing change. They're not influencing growth. They're not influencing personal development. Identity becomes before action. It precedes action. If you don't see yourself as a part of the picture, you can't really walk into alignment with that. That's something that we see very often in ministry. People are trying to do things, but they flame out because they're not in alignment with the mission. They're not in alignment with the work. As long as they're not, they'll always be disjointed. Anything that comes through a wind of change, if you will blow them out of their box, knock them right out of their square because they're not aligned to what is actually taking place. Let's talk about Peter again. Let's bring him back into this. If you research Peter and you look at his life and what he walked through in the New Testament, one of the things that he's going to be known for is that when facing opposition and challenge in some areas, his intention is that word again. His intention was to be brave and to be faithful and to stand up. But before the day of Pentecost, when Jesus Christ was being crucified, he was limited by fear, limited by self-doubt, to the degree that he denied Jesus 3 times when he said he would never, ever do so. His intentions were good. Many of us would have said the same thing. I will never leave you, Father. You're the true and living God. You're the Son of God. I would never leave you. And then we got little girls telling us, oh, you're one of them. And we're like, I don't know who you're talking about. I never heard of the man before. We judge Peter harshly, but his boots on your feet. Would you do the same? Where are you denying Jesus right now? Where have you forsaken him even today? Where have you put him to the side in favor of something else that you thought was more about you and more your identity? But he had an identity shift. Post-resurrection and post-Pentecost, he had an identity shift and became one of the greatest leaders of the early church. Even if you don't care about things biblical, get the gist of the story here. Get out of your own head for a minute and just hear what I'm trying to tell you. You can have an identity shift. Your actions aren't going to change until you do this. If you want different actions in life, you want different choices, different outcomes, you got to become a different person internally. It's the bottom line. You're not getting around this. If you don't change that part, nothing else is going to change. There are people who talk about self-awareness and identity, but where are you living your life from right now? This is what I want to get into before we close the episode out today. Where are you living your life from? Which identity are you living your life from? Because there's actually more than one identity. Let's look at it like this. I think we talked about it in our first installment of the Wholeness series, but we're going to touch on it again. I think it's really valuable here. I know somebody who I grew up with that had a massive amount of tragedy. Their mother was a drug addict. Their brother became a drug addict and really sick all of the time. No father in the household, abandoned by their father, rejected, dealing with rejection. We would go to school and you could see it on him like a coat. You can see the rejection and the weight of the world because he was basically taking care of his family. We were in intermediate school together and he was taking care of his family, making sure his mother didn't go off the deep end, making sure his brother had something to eat every night because mom wasn't in the condition to cook, if she was even there at all. I watched this. I didn't understand how to process as a kid. I was a pretty sensitive kid, pretty intuitive. So I kind of had a feeling about, I kind of understood that my friend was going through some things, and he was a good friend of mine. I mean, he would wear like a coat though. He would come in, his clothes wouldn't be clean, he wouldn't smell very good, but he was still my friend. I didn't duck him and hide from him, but there was a problem there. But the point I want to make in this, and you can apply your own personal experience and situation to this discussion, but the point is that the thing that was happening to him weren't his identity. Which identity did he choose to live from? The one that he believed was available to him, or the one he felt like this is his lot in life? This is who it is, and he's going to be like this until it's time for him to go away to college. Which is your true identity? Are they coming from expectations or labels, patterns of life, behavior that you followed in the past, you continue to do now? What stories are you telling yourself? What stories need to be rewritten that you're talking to yourself about? Who has the pen in all of this storytelling? Who you allowing to write your story? I think it's time for us to do an identity rewrite. I want to do that, get into that real quick before we close the show out today. Practical exercise for this upcoming week. Every day that we do this, give me some assignments to do and things to walk through. Use it, pass it on to others, however you want to do it. But if you are journaling or you're writing stuff down, grab that and write your statement down. I am the kind of person who blank. I am the kind of person who blank. And fill in the blank with the qualities you want to embody. Not just behaviors. Who do you want to be from a quality standpoint? Write that in the blank. I am the kind of person who blank. Write that down. You can put it in the comment section in the chat when you're watching this and listening to this right now. I am the kind of person who blank. For example, I'm the kind of person who leads with integrity. I'm the kind of person who's not afraid to face conflict. I'm the kind of person who is not afraid to confront myself when I'm wrong. I'm the kind of person who cultivates courage and patience. However you want to fill it out. Identify the behavior that contradicts that identity. Look at your life. Find one behavior that contradicts who you want to be. Then ask yourself, how do you get into alignment? How do you become the person that you want to become? Because it's going to start with you internally, dealing with that identity. Coming to terms with the fact that identity you've been walking out is not the true identity. It's a counterfeit. It's just essentially a house that hasn't been cleaned yet. It's not who you actually are. And from those decisions, real change begins to take place, and it's going to flow out of you. It's not coming from outward. It's not your job and your assignment. It's not how many friends you got, how many followers you got on social media. That's outward. The change that take place from within. So just remember that your intentions are important, but they're never going to be enough. There's an old saying that I don't know who quoted it, but somebody said, I grew up listening to this, that the path to hell is paved with good intentions. Identity precedes action. Who you're becoming determines how you act, the choices you make, and the impact that you have. I'm going to say it again for those in the back. I want you to miss that. Who you are becoming determines how you act, the choices you make, and the impact you have. So this week, focus on seeing your identity more clearly. Strip away the trauma. Strip away the pain, the distrust, the betrayal, the rejection, the abandonment. Strip it all away. Who are you? If you don't have an answer for that, it's a sad testament, and it's the area that we need to be working. If those things don't make you, I know the voices may say, you know what, this is who you are. This is your lot in life, but those things stripped away are not. If that's the case, why did Jesus die for us? To leave us with that? Of course not. It's an identity that you're not seeing yet, but you need to see it. It's time for you to take that pen back from whoever you gave the pen to and begin to rewrite your story. It's time for you to rewrite your story. Take that pen back and rewrite your story. Start aligning the action that you know is the person you need to be, and strip away those behaviors that don't match up with that identity, and begin to take small steps, consistent steps. It's going to compound into the kind of transformation that we're talking about, that I believe you want. Thank you again for tuning into the Inspiration Station and your Everyday Edge podcast. This is the Wholeness series. We're having some fun with this as long as we can. Next time, we're going to talk about emotional maturity. Ooh, it's going to be a good one. How to take responsibility without shame and how to navigate life's challenges with clarity and composure. We're going to talk about how to take responsibility, emotional maturity. Bring that in every area of our life. So bring your thoughts and questions and comments. That's going to be a good one. Until then, keep reflecting, keep aligning, and remember, transformation always begins from the inside out, not the outside in. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Talk soon.